Hello, my name is Bianca. I work alongside with Jada, Austin, Cassiera, and Esther. We all decided to work on the country and study the country Australia, and we decided that the purpose of our trip would be leisure. Leisure. How did our group work together? Sorry, I moved myself. How did our group work together? So I put it in chronological order, but basically, we first started off with the group chat. The group chat was just a group chat full of our numbers, no names included. It was pretty much just to schedule our first Zoom meeting. We kind of all figured that it'd be better to just break the ice and start the conversation in the Zoom meeting rather than in messages. But that's what we did. We kind of just that's why I put strangers to team members because we started off as strangers, and then once we actually got to the Zoom meeting, Jada actually took the initiative of starting the conversation, and then she broke the ice a little bit, and then that's when everybody just kind of um, wasn't so much shy anymore, and we kind of after that it was easy going. It was pretty much we got straight to the point. We got our work done, and that's why we assigned Jada our team later actually because she took the initiative of starting the conversation when everybody else was too afraid to. Um, During the Zoom meeting, we actually divided up the work to everyone's benefit as well. So if one person were to have more knowledge on one subject than the other, then that person would take that subject, and another person would take another subject. So we basically took the subjects based on our own knowledge of the subject, what we know best, basically. And then also we scheduled a second meeting, which was believed yesterday. Um, Time flexibility actually kind of has a lot to do with that, just because we all have personal lives, we all work, we all go to school. So it was kind of really good that we all knew how to communicate and we all knew how to make time for the meetings because we knew it was important for the communication to be there. But it was just working around everyone's schedule, and we also defined the clear roles and expectations. That was basically the part of assigning everyone's slides of who's doing what. And I feel like for the most part, that was pretty smooth. No one really had an issue of what slides they were doing. Everyone was pretty cool with whatever they were doing. Everyone took the initiative of saying they were okay with their slides, and if they didn't, they would mention it, which I don't think we had any of that. Um, the breakout group, I mentioned the breakout group because I know it is something that we have learned in one of the lessons. But I don't know as for anybody else, but I know for as an example, me and Cassiera did have to have our separate own group chat just because we shared a slide that talked about the same subject. So we wanted to communicate with each other and make sure we weren't covering knowledge twice, and as well as if I had talked about something, she didn't want to mention that too in her part. So that's why we had to have a separate conversation, which I found really helpful. Even though our group is pretty small already. The check-ins were pretty much. I feel like we did these pretty constantly. We did this pretty much every day, and they were just like messages here and there. Maybe if we had questions, just to check up on each other and how our part was coming along, and to make sure that each member had enough time for their topic, had enough time with their topic, because we did not want to cut anyone's time short and then have them lose points just because they didn't have enough to talk about. So overall, I think my group for being strangers and getting to know each other over one Zoom call and assigning all of the work and getting everything done was pretty good on communication. We're pretty good on getting our work done and being helpful to one another if we're not understanding something, and knowing that this is a grade for all of us, not just one person. And yeah, I'm really glad that I got to work with these people because they were really easy to work with. Okay, so actually getting into Australia, these are just some random facts about Australia. The population size that I got was 21,262,641. The ethnicities were mainly white, Asian, and other, which is the 1%, but white was mainly the overall ethnicity, which was 92%. The main spoken language was English, coming at a 78.5%. The other languages were listed in the website, but they were all like 1%, 2%. So I feel like I just kind of combined them all because English was the main language. As for religions, same thing. Catholic and Anglican, sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, had the biggest percentage in religion. The They also had like a lot religions listed, but I was not gonna go and mention each one whenever it was like point something percent. So I kind of just went over all that was Catholic and Anglican. Um, what I found to be pretty interesting was that 18.7 of Australia falls under no religion. So they don't identify with any religion, and that's why I mentioned that, because I feel like that's a pretty big percentage for not falling under any religion. Okay. And then just continuing it, the location is Oceania. Um, the continent between the Indian Ocean and the South Pacific Ocean. I actually found the fact of it's actually the world's smallest continent, but the sixth largest country. And then the per capita income, one second, the per capita income, you can see that throughout the 2000s to 2020, Australia's per capita income had immensely risen over the last 2 decades. And then at 2014, I believe, it started to decline. This is just the overall one. There was a lot of specifics, but the overall per capita income was from, I only had the 2000s to 2020. Well, I was only able to find the 2000s to 2020 on this website. And then lastly, Hofstede's dimensions of national culture, when and how it was developed. So it was developed in 1980 by Geert Hofstede. A study was created to determine the dimensions in which cultures can vary. This is basically 6 categories that define national cultures and the way cultures worked in every country and the way businesses ran in every country. Just the different ways that countries differentiated in the way cultures, business, the way their life was, things like that. We're gonna get deeper into the topic in a bit, but he actually passed away not too long ago. He passed away in February 21st, I believe, in 2020. But it was a study created. So it started off as a study, and now it's an overall region and a website that it's used to identify all the differences between. And if you do a comparison, actually, it comes. We did a comparison with Australia, which you'll see later on. There's actually a really big difference, and it's pretty interesting to see. But as for my part, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoyed my sites.
All right, guys, so let's discuss dimensions for Australia. So there are a few dimensions that you are going to see or be familiar with or should be familiar with after the end of this presentation. These dimensions will be individualism, uncertainty avoidance, masculinity, femininity, and power distance. These dimensions are useful because this helps understand the culture and nature of the country and being captured about the different countries and how they look, what they work with, what they believe, and how this affects their overall rate as a whole. Now, when we discuss these dimensions, there should be put into place that there are limitations that come with information and research done with these dimensions. Some limitations that you are going to notice that aren't going to be involved more so. Some limitations to these dimensions are that some research lacks psychological and social research that may be affected. So if you need that information, it may be less than what you expected to find. So please take note of that. So now we're at individualism dimension. The fundamental issue addressed by this dimension is the degree of interdependency a society maintains among its members. It has to do with whether people's self-image is defined in terms of I or we. There's no I in team, we've all heard that before. This can help pertain to that. Or we, which comes more for group, which you could see as more of a collective society. So in individualist societies, people are supposed to look after themselves and their direct family only. So like I said, this will not depend on a group, a government more say to help or to take care of. This is more I can do it. Self-sufficiency, which we can see in this image below, attached to this slide. So self-sufficiency and independence very high when it comes to individualism dimensions. Australia's individualism score is a 90%, making them a highly individualist culture. Australia with a score of 90 On this dimension is a highly individualist culture. This translates into a loosely knit society in which the expectations is that people look after themselves and their immediate family. In this business world, employees are expected to be self-reliant and display initiative. Also, within this exchange based world of work, hiring and promotion decisions are based on merit or evidence of what one has done or can do. So this is being discussed that this isn't more of a reliable, you lay on my shoulder, I lay on your shoulder type society. This is, I'm going to do this. I'm going to see if you can do it too. And let's see if it works so you can be a part of something. But it's for you and it's for me. It's more of a, I scratch your back, you scratch mine, but still pertaining to a particular individual, which in this case would be yourself or again, immediate family. And this graph that is going to be, that you see in this slide, there is a scores that Australia has scored within the dimensions that will be discussed further on in the presentation. So if you want to come back and just refer back to this graph just to get better insight, it will be right there for you. Individualism scores unraveled. So below the norms and practices of the culture is going to be on the Australia culture is going to be on the left. We are going to be comparing, I'm sorry, let me move myself. We will be comparing Australia and United States. So in this graph right in the middle, you will see the United States is in the purple and Australia is in the blue. This gives you better insight of what each score was. You can see that they're really close in rate, which helps you understand that there's a difference, but it's a really good similarities too. So, but today we're going to be discussing the differences. So Australia's culture is majority Christianity and Catholic beliefs, while, as you know, in the United States, there's more variety of different religions, everybody coming from everywhere. This has to do with migration and other things of that sort. So there's a variety of different religions when we think about United States compared to Australia. Australia is also a constitutional monarchy, while the United States is republic. Government officials elect the prime minister. So although they are for independent, everybody has their ruling, government does do the choosing of a prime minister and government officials, unlike where the people elect the president in the United States. Australia can be more optimistic, while the United States is practical. Uncertainty avoidance. The dimension uncertainty avoidance has to do with the way that a society deals with the fact that the future can never be changed. This can be an easy example of stuck tradition, stuck religion beliefs, stuck ruling, historical pattern, not really fitting into the modern belief. Should be known to try to control the future or just let it happen. The extent to which the members of a culture feel threatened for unknown situations that have created beliefs in institutions that try to avoid these is reflected in the same on uncertainty avoidance. So to give you a better highlight or better in-depth detail, staying in the same job, routine, culture, belief. This has to do with uncertainty avoidance. You do not want to see a change. You do not want to see a difference. Why? Because you are stuck and you see that you're stuck in this routine. You don't see any problems with it. You don't need anything different. That is very high, and it's very high in Australia. So in Australia, culture definitely has to do with stuck in that routine, that job. They're very historical, so it wouldn't be surprising not to see them change or, change tradition. Another example for uncertainty avoidance would be afraid of people who are different, look, behave, or believe. They don't believe the same as you. They don't look the same as you. I'm scared of you. Why? Because I'm stuck in that mindset. Most of the time, this could probably refer to a fixed mindset, which we've learned in previous modules. In uncertainty avoidance, have a feeling of what is different is dangerous. This can be an example of why cultures high in score with this are determined on tradition and ruling. So when you go back into this, you see that, like I said, you don't want to see different. So this could be a dimension previous and the prior slides, I did mention psychological and social research is a limit to this dimension. But for what we have right here, basically to help you remember or remind yourself of what this is, someone who is stuck in a tradition, someone who is stuck in a routine, someone who sees something, they're like, oh, we didn't do that back in my day. This isn't back in your day, you know? So they don't want to be in that modern presentation anymore. They don't want to try to learn it. They've stuck to this routine. They know the deal, and that's all they're going to do. That's all they're going to realize. And they're going to put their foot down to that. So that is uncertainty avoidance. I hope you guys enjoyed this presentation and the presentation prior and after me. And thank you so much.
Hi everyone, my name is Jada Weathersby. I will be continuing on the topic of uncertainty avoidance and specifically Australia's score in comparison to the United States. So Australia sits at a score of 51. It's in the middle, it's very moderate. It has both characteristics of high and low uncertainty traits. So in comparison to the US has a score of 46 and Australia is just above that score. We share similar norms and rules between the two countries. So specifically Australia allows freedom of speech, equality for everyone, and mutual respect. Behavior includes staying humble and not brag about personal achievements. While they're very moderate and in the middle, they have specific rules set in place, but still allow people to kind of do what they want and not have that decision affect others. Australians value their personal space, being close together. They do like interacting with people. It's just having that respect of staying out of someone's bubble and personal space can kind of prevent that risk taking while still being able to interact with people. Moving on to the power distance dimension. So the definition of power distance is the relationship between high authority personnel and subordinates, whether it's in the workplace, school, government. It's how others treat each other and what their ranking is in that specific environment. So high power distance, these people in power or are high ranking, they have privilege. Powerful people want to look as powerful as possible. They try not to look equal to or lower than the people that they are kind of taking influence from. They people in high power distances expect a lot of respect and authority from those below them. Characteristics of low power distance is equal rights, no set hierarchy, and respect for individuality. Um, while there's still rankings in class in the low power distance, it's how much the higher ups look for people who are lower than them. They still are included and make sure everyone's ideas and input are shared, whether whatever environment they're in. So Australia's power distance score is 38. This means in society, every individual person is looked at for input. They are classified as a low distance power score. Communication is very direct. The higher ups will still get information, but as well as lower employees will still be brought up to speed, and managers and employees are both consulted. It's not just the managers or the higher ups making the decisions in this low power environment. People who are lower are able to be included into the project. So behavior and norms that reflect this compared to the United States, the US power distance score is 40, so it's very close, just 2 points off. If you ask anyone around you, whether it's school, at your workplace, they would probably classify themselves as middle class. Most of Australia and the US population do classify themselves as middle class. The Australian workplace is very relaxed. The salary range is not significant between the top of the work chain and just lower people who work for the company or wherever you are. Standard work week is about 38 hours, and their government is based on majority. While they still have influence from the Queen, she is not involved in everyday rules for Australia, and government officials get elected as well in Australia's government. And moving on to masculinity and femininity, which is next.
All right, my name is Esther Matamoros. I will be doing slides 17 through 20. First one I'm doing is on masculinity and femininity. So Australia is considered a masculine society. Males can be called feminine, as in woman-like, and women can be called masculine, as in man-like. And these are not uncommon. So if a woman is acting man-like, then that's perfectly fine in Australia. Same with males. Masculine on this dimension is a society driven by competition, achievement, and success, known to be winners. On the feminine side, this dimension is that the dominant value in society is to care for others and the quality of life. The masculine dimension is that the value system starts in school and continues throughout one's life, both in the work and the leisure pursuits. On the feminine society, on the feminine society, one where the quality of life is a sign of success and standing out from the crowd is not admirable. Oh. Okay, on this next slide is the score versus masculinity versus femininity. The Australia score is 61, and that's pretty high for this country compared to most. What is the score? The score means that the masculinity score is the average of the ratings on the 20 masculine items. The femininity score is the average of the ratings on the 20 feminine items. Masculinity and femininity are logically and empirically independent. The next slide is the second set of questions that we had on here, which was basically how is the dimension exemplified in the culture? In other words, like which behavior, norms, values, and practices illustrate its score on the dimension. So basically on this is the why. The behavior in school, work, and play are based on the shared values. They do strive to be the best that they can be, and the winner takes all. Australians are proud of their successes and achievements in life. Conflicts are resolved at an individual level, and the goal is to win. The differences as far as within Australia is they do use dry and perverse humor, and they come across as self-deprecating. They do come across as relaxed, and they do wait for things to happen. They tend to be naturally skeptical and often demonstrate an ingrained suspicion of authority. So they kind of don't like people to tell them what to do, so to speak. Indulgent, and let's move this over a little bit. Indulgent versus restraint is the indulgence means that a society that allows relatively free gratification and basic and natural human drives to enjoying life and having fun. The restraint means that a society that suppresses gratification of needs and regulates it by means of strict social norms. In other words, so the weak is the indulgence, the strong is the restraint. Basically what that means is if you come to a situation where you've got like a cupcake that's sitting there in your cupboard, or a piece of cake, or whatever the case is, anything that's going to entice you to want to eat or do something that you're not supposed to. And your restraint is going to be, how are you either not going to eat that, or not do what you're supposed to, or go for a joyride if you stole a car, or whatever the case is. So that's basically what those means. It's basically one or the other, indulgence versus restraint. And that's pretty much all of my slides that I had to do.
Thank you, Esther, for introducing indulgence versus restraint. My name is Austin, and I'll be wrapping up the conversation around this dimension. Australia's indulgence score is at a 71, which is leaning fairly heavily towards indulgence. Really what this indicates is that the culture tends to value spending its time and resources in a way that aligns with the things that individuals want, whether that be impulses or desires, or whatever else the case might be. They are more likely to spend time doing things that they enjoy, or things that they find fulfilling, rather than focusing on obligations or duties. So some really good examples of that might be going out and enjoying time with friends or family. Now, it is fairly similar to the score that the United States has. With them being only a couple of points away from each other. So all in, very similar as far as how indulgent versus restraint the culture is, but it is expressed fairly differently because the culture is different. So there are a couple of key differences there. Some of those differences are just in the ways that the Australian people tend to enjoy their time. A lot of Australians tend to enjoy time outdoors and enjoying their wonderful natural ecosystems that they have access to, spending time at the beaches or spending times out in forests or out on ATVs, things along those lines. So those are definitely some things that they prioritize and are working towards on a regular basis. Many of the norms in Australian culture revolve around building time with close friends, spending a lot of casual time with each other, and strengthening those bonds through conversation. Now, when talking about the way that they express those indulgences, it is definitely a preference for casual settings and making sure that they are relaxed. So they're not typically very restrained people in conversation or how they appear outwardly to each other. They tend to be fairly relaxed people. Now, since our conversation is regarding taking a trip to Australia and enjoying yourself, having some fun leisure, it is very important to remember that Australians tend to have a very dry sense of humor. They will say something but mean the exact opposite. They also appreciate some good banter and would love to have some good back and forth with people. So keep that in mind. They will definitely try to poke fun, make jokes. The cultural norm is to make some jokes back, but you do have to be very careful. It would be considered extremely rude and impolite if you make those same comments while somebody isn't there. They are very, very indulgent when it comes to their alcohol. It is definitely one of their national pastimes to take quite a bit of pride in their drinking and the fun that they have there. They do also have an enormous amount of respect for their wonderful environment that they have. So keep that in mind. If you're out, make sure you're picking up after yourself and taking care of the environment as well. They do also expect that, if you're out with friends, family, whatever the case might be, that things are a shared group experience. So if you're out to dinner, everyone picks up a portion of the tab, or everyone picks up a portion of the duties for whatever you're doing there. So do keep that in mind while you're there. Some important don'ts is to make sure that you're not too conscientious of your word choices and what you're doing, that you're not too restrained by rules. You definitely don't want to come across as somebody that is only thinking about the politically correct way of saying things. It's also important to avoid divisive topics because they will get quite in your face about things that they feel strongly about. So it's best to keep away from divisive topics, and also to avoid any kind of boastful comments that kind of put yourself as a superior person in some kind of way. It's just viewed as very bad manners. So, and some other important things to take everything with a grain of salt. Most likely it's a joke to point fun at something, so don't take anything too seriously. And also make sure that you arrive on time. Timeliness is very important to them and their culture. So hope you have a fantastic time, and thank you for listening.